Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, and today I'm going to talk to you about my Grey Knights that are going to be taking on lane once again, except this time he's bringing his Votann, and a little bit of a spicy Votann too. Not the traditional Votann that we're seeing on the table, but you know what? That's not my place. That's not for me to say. We're going to let him talk about that later today. Today, we're here to talk about Grey Knights. Grey Knights, Grey Knights. And let me tell you, tonight it's going to be a Grey Knight, where we're bringing 20 Psycannons. That's right, as you guys seen in the title, this list is 20 Psycannons. And you may ask, how? How do you have 20 Psycannons in there? And other people who know Grey Knights are just going to go, okay, you took Purge Squad, and you took a Purge and put 4 Psycannons in each one. Okay, got it. That's what you did. Yes, that is exactly what I did. I am loading up things on Psycannons and taking Psycannons for days. And doing a little tweak to the traditional Grey Knight formula so that we can, end of the edition, let's see what some of these things can do and mess around with some of the little other aspects to it. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications. Get notified of more videos such as this one, as well as Lane's description and the battle report that we're going to be playing later today. And yeah, like, share, and comment down below. Maybe you guys might have some ideas to tweak this little list a bit. I am trying to get to an RTT before 10th edition comes into full swing, and I do want to play Grey Knights at it. This list has a little bit of painting that needs to be done to it. For the most part, though, I went with the idea of what I already have painted and ready to go because I'm working on other projects at this time. And I spend a lot of time on my Grey Knights. Hopefully some of you guys can notice on the channel that I do put a lot of work into my models, and especially in my Grey Knights. A lot of hand painting goes into it. I traditionally only use airbrushes to get base coats, layers, and that's it. And everything else I try to do by hand, just because that's how I know. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. But speaking of new tricks, let's get over to the Grey Knights and see what we are bringing today. All right, so some of these models look familiar, some may not. So I am bringing a Grey Knight army. And in this army, I am going to be doing the Prescient Brotherhood, which means that my Apothecary is going to be getting the Warlord trait that allows him to complete a psychic action and generate a command point. And we'll start over with the characters just so I can go over some of these things. And how I'm going to be working with it. So like I've said before with the Brotherhoods, I'm in a personal opinion that I look at those and I see like, okay, which is the one ability I want to go for? And for this, I want to make sure that I have command points. Some of the other stuff in my army doesn't really have a lot of things that they could take off for the Brotherhoods. I'm not going as crazy with it, especially because I'm an MSU style. One thing that will be very nice is I do have the 1 command point strat that lets me select one of my core Brotherhood units, and they can reroll hit and wound rolls of 1. Rerolling wounds won't be effective against Votann, but all in all, for 1 command point to be able to reroll hit and wound rolls of 1 on a unit that just deep striked in and maybe wasn't able to get Drago's buff, I like it. I like it a lot. So, characters for this army. We'll start off with that Apothecary. The Apothecary is going to have Sanctuary on him, but he traditionally is just going to stand in the back behind one of my units and, gain me a command point, take a psychic action every turn and try and gain a command point off of him. Grey Knights spend command points really quick. Some of the stuff in here costs a little bit more than I'd like. Psi ammunition, I'd have to say, is the one. Shunt, I can understand why it's 2 command points. It's a huge ability, but the Psi bolt ammunition at 2 command points is kind of rough, especially with it being such an iconic thing that the Grey Knights can do. So he's there to kind of help me do that. He's also there to heal and give buffs to a couple of my other units, including my 1 big bodyguard unit, which will cover them after the characters. Next up is Lord Calidor Drago, and what do I need to say about him? He is Drago. He's got a shield, he's got a sword, and he's got a mean streak about him. So he's going to have Gate of Infinity, as well as Sanctuary on him too. I want to make sure that I can keep the defensive, especially Sanctuary, be able to have access to that. And then having Gate of Infinity on him as well as somebody else is nice. So I have gate both in the front and backfield, which is something that I personally like when I'm deploying my Grey Knights, to be able to have gate in multiple areas. And speaking of gate in multiple areas, we'll go over to my third character, who is my Librarian. This Librarian is my Warlord. He will have the Warlord trait Unyielding Anvil to be able to give objective secured as an aura. He will have the Gem of Inactu, and that gives him +2 once per game to casting Dominus powers. Now, traditionally, a lot of people don't really run that because they usually use the Librarian as a Mortal Wound Bomb, and I have been. He's great. He's awesome. We're going to try something a little different with him. So his psychic powers he's going to have is Empiric Amplification and Gate of Infinity. So basically, when I pop the gem, I can do the Empiric Amplification and make sure that I hit a unit with it. Empiric Amplification is a psychic power that targets a unit, an enemy unit, and any psi weapons that wound that unit get an increased damage of 1. And that's really going to come in effect with the Psycannons to be able to get them up to a higher damage profile. He also has the Unyielding Anvil, like I said, to give him the aura, which a stratagem that I had forgotten about, that I actually didn't even know existed for a long time, was the one command point that I can take a unit during my command phase and count it as if it's in range of another aura or effect, making Unyielding Anvil to me really awesome, and I kind of wish I would have seen that sooner, especially in a lot of games. That would have helped. Moving on to my elites. Here is my bodyguard. I am taking 8 paladins. The paladins have armored resilience. That gives them the buff to their armor. Paladins are just mean in close combat. Paladins are cool. I love my paladins. I figure, why not? 2 reasons. 1, the extra damage output, the extra hitting capability, as well as the fact of having armored resilience. They can change their powers too. So in a situation where I may want to go into Hammerhand, not against Votann, I can switch them over. And just the fact that they, like I said again, armored resilience, armored resilience, armored resilience. Ethereal Castigation is also pretty cool on them, since they are Terminators and they are relatively slow. So being able to shoot during the psychic phase and then move is pretty nice. So there's a lot of play with them there. But all in all, they're the paladins. They have a big beefy stat check, and with the apothecary giving them feel no pain and being able to pick them back up and put models back in the squad, as well as Drago being able to give them full rerolls if they're the target, and the Librarian, who is going to be protected by them but can also gate them. I like them. I think they'll do the trick for what I need them for, when that's partially being a bodyguard to my characters, as well as being a big enough of a threat that someone doesn't just try and steamroll them. We do have 1 unit of troops. This is going to be a 10-man squad of strike, and much in the fashion that I didn't mention with the paladins, the reason I took the numbers that I am with them is because of how many special weapons you could take. With paladins, every 5 models allows you 2 Psycannons. So for the paladins, I took 8 of them. 10 would have given me 4 Psycannons. Didn't really have the points there. That's okay. So we have 2 Psycannons for the paladins, and now with the strike, we also have 2 Psycannons in here. So these guys I will most likely be combat squatting, and then putting the 2 Psycannons into a 5-man, while the other 5-man will be with just regular swords. This allows the 5-man to be the action monkeys, performing psychic purifying ritual, or any other actions that I may need over the course of the game, and cover more of the field. Now with this list, I am giving up a lot of Abhor the Witch points, and as well a sucker for no prisoners. If we were looking more into a GT season, I may take that into consideration and try to wheel down, put in more characters because of Abhor the Witch, put in more vehicles because of where Abhor the Witch got moved to. I might try and do some of that stuff. But with the damage output that I'm looking to put out of this army, maybe I can just pick things up quick enough that I don't lose too many psychic units in that sense. The striker objective secured, which is nice, and as with everything in Grey Knights, they have the ability to deep strike. Moving over into my fast attack. This is my compulsory choice for this. And I will be taking 30 interceptors because they are amazing. This is another reason why we kind of get hit a little hard in no prisoners, because taking 30 interceptors right off rip is 60 possible no prisoner points. But these guys do it all. They're fast, they're quick, psychers. They also have the ability to shoot and move psychic power, and a lot of cool, unique stratagems like shunt, and the ability to fall back out of combat as well and still function. These guys have been the bread and butter for a lot of Grey Knight players. I'm just included in that mix. And for me, they're one of my prettiest models in my Grey Knight army. I would think right up there with my Paladins, and probably my one Grandmaster Dread that I did some heavy conversions to. So I love keeping these guys in my list and keeping them on the table. 2 of the 10-man squads. Now, all these are going to be combat squadded. So when I start the game, I'm going to have 6 5-man fast interceptor units. 2 of those 5-mans, because of the special weapons rules, will have 2 Psycannons in their squad. Since you can take 1 for every 5, I will split them up so that the 2 Psycannons are in one unit and all the close combat weapons go into the other. Last but certainly not least, the Purgation squads. I will be taking 3 5-man Purgation squads with Psycannons. Now, if I take this to an RGT, I got, looks like 6, 7 models that need a little bit of work done to them. And I'm okay with that, because some of these are conversions, some of these are other stuff that some of these already have some work done to them. And I'd like to spend a little more time with detail with my Terminators over Marines, that these are older models, so there's not as much detail, so I should be able to knock these out quicker. With that being said, we have 3 5-man squads, all with 4 Psycannons in each. So basically, they deep strike, I shoot, and with Empiric Amplification, I'm hoping to be able to pick up targets for Teleport Strike. A lot of weapons in there. Again, though, these guys are 5-mans that are Marines, so they have 2 wounds apiece. They can land on objectives, 24-inch range, and hold down an objective. So there's a lot of versatility out of them. Not to mention the fact, again, with Empiric Amplification in 1 squad of these guys, or even just a filtering of command points, these guys could pick up units relatively easily. And if each one of these 5-mans each is able to kill a unit when it deep strikes in, that would be nice to be able to put me at least 10 points towards the 15 for Teleport Strike. These guys, it's been, I've seen it as a conversation quite a few times in different groups and forums, and it's tough because they are Marines. So when they land, they shoot, and if they don't do what they're supposed to do, chances are they're going to die. They're not going to last through very, very long, especially when they're deep striking in on turns 2 and 3. But, man, it's some firepower. And against Votann later tonight and their firepower, time to test them out, see what they can do. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for this, is going to be, we'll see some of these theories in action when I'm able to cast Empiric Amplification, buffing some of these units and making a lot of things, trying to make a lot of things happen. And there you have it. There's my Grey Knights that I'm going to be bringing later tonight against Lane and his Votann. I'm interested to see what he's bringing, because he said he has some other Votann units that I haven't seen before. I know he picked up some of the Sagittarius, but what else? What else does Trickster Lane have in store with his mighty, mighty Votann? Well, for me, the scoring aspect that I'm going to be trying to do against him is Purifying Ritual, retrieve battlefield data, and Teleport Strike. So conversations recently with my buddy Zach, we were talking about some of the stuff and how I was trying to play Terminators towards the center. And he brought up an interesting point. He's like, do you really even need to play center? He's like, can you play outside? And looking at the way the Grey Knights work, I was like, that's an interesting point. I wonder if I could. And then I said, I'm going to drop all these Psycannons in there, and he slaps his forehead and goes, if that's what you need. But again, this is meant to be a little more fun and have some, while I would plan on bringing this to a local, It's meant to have a little more fun with it and mess around with some units that and styles, because like again, the Librarian being such a backfield uh, army buffer is not something we traditionally see. Traditionally, Librarian is an aggressive mortal wound cannon, and that's something I won't have as much. I'll only have basic smites, but again, I have smites all over the place. So, for starters, Purifying Ritual. Pretty self-explanatory. Complete a psychic action on an objective, score points. I have psychers all over the place. Check. Next, Teleport Strike. I have a lot of small units, Gate of Infinity, shunt moves, everything else. Land, either shunt, deep strike, gate, and destroy an enemy unit with that unit. Score 5 points. Okay, got a lot of units for that. Still difficult because Lane is someone who I've played against quite a bit, and it is in Lane's in the back of his mind to spend command points and do things to pull units off the table and go, okay, well, now the easy kill that you had of one guy left is now off in reserve and make me have to really fight for those points. So, especially going against Lane, he has the wit to try to stop me from scoring those points. But I have a lot more damage output in shooting phase than I traditionally bring. Grey Knights are not necessarily known as a shooting army for their infantry. It's Dread Knights do well. So we're going to see how this does. Maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I got something cool that hasn't been tried before. We'll see. And last but surely not least, retrieve battlefield data. So before I was doing banners, and the one thing about banners is that it's easy for my army to place up banners. But every time I place them, I end up having to either sacrifice a unit to get the banner up, or I sacrifice the unit in the sense of it's not contributing to the overall scheme of the game to put the banner up. With retrieve battlefield data, I won't have to sacrifice as many, and I can move around the field. And because of the fact of being Grey Knights and having all the different gates and shunts and everything else, I'm constantly threatening my opponent's table half and table corners throughout the course of the game. So I like that. I like the fact that it pulls me out of a center game, which means I really can play around to the outside. So some of the more aggressive shooting armies that want to set up a castle, I may be able to create really, really, really solid flanks. I don't have to worry about movement because I just deep strike. So that's kind of my plan going into it for tonight. We'll see how that plays out. Lane's got some Lane's, I'm sure, got some tricks up his sleeve. He even talked about bringing a different league. So this is going to be all new. I'm not going to know anything. Anything I'm thinking about Votann, I'm going to just go look at I don't even know what army you're playing anymore. So, but that's going to be it for my list. Guys, hope you enjoy, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.